Well, FCF, we're coming to the very last section of Scripture in our study of 2 Timothy, and Paul is going to do what he does in a lot of his letters. He's going to just greet some people. This was real life, real individuals that he would interact with and that had impact on his life. So he's closing out his letter, and it's the last letter with an assortment of statements and greetings. So we'll jump right into it. Verse 19 through 22. He says, give my greetings. So he's telling Timothy, give my greetings to Priscilla and Aquila. Now, Priscilla and Aquila, they're interesting people. Paul meets them in Corinth. You can read about it in Acts chapter 18, verse 1 and 2. You can read about them again in Romans 16, verse 3. They were still partnering with Paul in ministry. So once Paul met them, they became pretty much lifelong partners in various parts of the European world in ministry. And the Asian world too, for that matter, with Paul. So he's greeting them. Evidently, they were in Ephesus. Give my greetings to Priscilla and Aquila, and those living in the household of Onesiphorus. Now, Onesiphorus, we read about in chapter 1. Paul talks about Onesiphorus. It said that, when he was in Rome under this imprisonment, he said, Onesiphorus, he sought him out. And then he came to his aid and, openly stood with Paul in jail. When you were a Roman prisoner, a lot of times you didn't get enough food or clothing or anything. And so if you had friends, they would be allowed to bring you things. And evidently Onesiphorus did. Now, this is important because, as I've said before, guilt by association. Onesiphorus himself could have been arrested because of his association and his devotion to Paul. So Paul's remembering him because he's not sure of his status. This might be his last words. Perhaps he suspected that. Verse 20. Erastus stayed at Corinth. We meet Erastus in Romans chapter 16, verse 23. And he's an interesting guy in that he's the only rich guy we know about for sure who was a Christian. Most Christians were slaves in the Roman Empire. But this guy is called in Romans 16. Let me give you the exact verse so you can look it up on your own. Verse 16, verse 23. Romans 16, 23. He's called like the head of the city public works in Rome. So he was a big shot. And yet he was a loyal follower of Christ who at this point was either, in Ephesus, but now he's at Corinth. He goes on to say, so Erastus stayed at Corinth. He says, and I left Trophimus sick at Miletus. Trophimus is a guy that we don't have. Well, actually we do. We have him mentioned in Acts chapter 20, verse 4, and Acts chapter 21, verse 29. So we do meet him earlier. He goes on, he says, do your best to get to me before winter. Remember, he asked for the cloak in the verses on Monday. So he's hoping Timothy will get there before winter. Notice that this great servant of God, he has no certainty. He's just like you and I. Even though he's walked with Christ for 32 years and been one that experienced miracles of God, the power of God in miraculous ways through him, he doesn't know if Timothy's going to be there or not, and he's okay with that. But he's hoping because it's getting cold evidently in Rome. And he says, bring that cloak because winter is coming. Do your best to get here before winter, he says to Timothy. Eubulus sends you greetings, and so do Pudens, Linus, Claudia, and all the brothers and sisters. Verse 22, may the Lord be with your spirit, and may his grace be with all of you. So he closes it out on a very personal level. It's fascinating. No calculated last words. You know what I'm saying? If most of us had a sense that we were the Apostle Paul and that our words would be reverberating into human lives for 2,000 years, we might be tempted to have some great statement, some great last personal words, or here's the 5 things I've learned in this journey, But that's not who this guy is. He's a beautifully simple man with depth that I don't think anyone has had since. But he ends the letter as a very simple man. He hopes to see Timothy again, but he's not sure. He's partnered with Timothy for 25 years. It would have probably meant a great deal to him. But he was not despondent or desperate because he knew he's going to see Timothy soon. Paul would leave this earth, but by what would seem like the heavenly time, the blink of an eye, Timothy would soon be there with him as well. And we need to live with that same kind of light. And I don't mean by that we should be flippant about our death or the death of fellow Christians, but we are to meet death with the confident hope that is based on the promises of Christ and the evidence, the compelling evidence of his resurrection from the dead. Because that's exactly where God tells us to live, that we are to be crazily confident that Jesus rose and he promises to raise we too who are his followers, and that to be absent from this physical body, as unsettling as that is, because this is all we've ever known, it is to be present with the Lord. And Paul ends his 32-year journey just like that, very simple, just giving some personal greetings. Well, I hope this journey has been meaningful for you. And like I said yesterday, I hope that the book of 2 Timothy will always be a lot more kind of a personal part of your journey and your understanding of the way God works in people's lives. Not sure where we're going to pick up in the new journey. I was thinking about some of the small books in the Old Testament, some of the minor prophets, but I'm not sure. Those are hard because there are a lot of narrative, and you just can't do much in a day-to-day kind of thing. But we'll see. We'll definitely go somewhere soon. So for now, goodbye.